CFB Paint. Is it week 13?
Yes, it
Is it?
is.
Oh my gosh.
Unlucky.
Yeah, we'll find out if some teams are unlucky this go around. I just feel like this season is now almost over and I'm already like mourning it, but part of me is like, Steve, cheer up, because with the playoff you actually have like a few more weeks of that. So like, hey, there's some good that's come from this expanded playoff after all. And I just like, yeah, I'm interested to see that. Also, like as an FSU fan, the season's like, can it please end, right? So there's kind of these weird emotions that are just like, please, let's close the door on this, never open it up again.
Well,
Uh,
I'm excited as a FSU fan. We might get to see it have a win. I don't know if I'm going to get to see it. I don't know if I can find it on ESPN Plus or ACC Network or Plus or whatever.
is it ACC Network Extra or whatever?
Yeah.
It's whatever like low. You're gonna see the same infomercial about 30 times if you do, or if you are able to find the game. But
Compact glasses with their individual windshield wipers. There you go.
bingo. But yeah, there's a couple of big games on the slate, and a couple of others that maybe are a little bit sleepy, but who knows what could happen. Um, I feel like I always defer to you to get things started off, so maybe I'll change it up. I'm
All
going to
right.
go ahead and talk through a couple of these that I'm intrigued in. Um, I might maybe we I might like mention a few of the ones from like the midweek slate, like Ohio Toledo. Like the winner of that game might be the front runner in the MAC. I know that probably no one cares about that, but I just Toledo is like, I just love what Toledo does. They just play good football. They've had a couple of disappointing performances of late, but Toledo, Ohio on Wednesday night. If you're not doing anything, that's 5 p.m. Mountain. Tune in. It's a home game for Toledo. The spread is 2.5, so you're going to get a banger of a game, or at least a competitive game. It may not be the highest quality football, but kind of like with pizza, even bad pizza is pretty good. Even bad football is still pretty good. Um, anyway, so I wanted to just highlight that one. The noon slate is pretty interesting this week, I think. We talked a little bit about Florida's resurgence on our last pod. I am very excited to see them lace it up with the Gators, or let's see the Gators lace it up with the Ole Miss Rebels coming to town. I mean, riding a high after beating LSU and kind of sending Brian Kelly back to the Bayou with his family. Um, and I mean, I'm just interested. Like, Florida can maybe make that a game. Ole Miss has a really good defensive line. I think the spread on that is about 10.5. But I'm just interested to see, can the Gators make it close late and give themselves a chance. I think you're going to need to have the right kind of pressure uh, on Jackson Dart to really kind of slow down that Ole Miss offense. I'm not sure they could do it, but I'm excited to see that game. I think Florida's surging at a time that Ole Miss can't afford any mistakes, right? They can't afford a misstep here. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that game?
No, exactly. I feel like Ole Miss has to win this, and so they will play with their hair on fire a little bit. I feel like this is a team that plays well when it's like it absolutely has to. I'm looking at their last game. I mean, they just beat Georgia. They had the bye week this last week, and so now they're taking Florida. I think I see this game kind of being 35-21 kind of thing. I expect that Ole Miss scores and they score a lot, score often, and then Florida kind of does a little bit of cleanup at the end to kind of make it a little bit closer than it was. This feels a little bit like the Texas game to me a little bit, but not quite to the extent. I mean, I'm not thinking a 49-17 like Texas was, but more like a 35-21. It ends up being closer to 14, but I think it's more of a 21-point spread for the majority of the game.
Yeah, that's probably how I see it playing out. I'm kind of hopeful that Florida makes it interesting. The one
And
thing
I
that I
don't,
can't
yeah, I don't think it wouldn't be surprising if they did. You know,
Yeah, the one thing I can't get past right now is like Ole Miss absolutely manhandled Georgia at the line of scrimmage, and so if they can do that to Georgia's offensive line, they certainly can do it to Florida. So, um, So we'll have to see how they hold up against the Ole Miss's defensive line. So if they can keep the score lower, I think that gives them a better chance in this game. Florida, again, probably stands a better chance if they can get this game played in the high teens, low 20s, versus if it gets to the mid 20s or upper 20s or 30s, like Ole Miss is going to score. You don't want to get in a shootout with Ole Miss.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely not.
so I don't know about that one, but then should we talk about just the biggest game in Indiana football history? I don't think that's hyperbole, or if it is, it's very limited hyperbole.
No, it's not
Going
hyperbole.
on the road into the horseshoe, Buckeyes. Buckeyes, you had a bye week last week. You got an extra week to get ready for Ohio State. Everything's in front of you if you're Indiana, and really, provided you don't get like really smoked in this game, like I still think you're a playoff team regardless. If you lose this game by like anything less than say 21, like if you lose by 17, I'm not holding that against you, or at least not enough to keep you out of the playoff. Um, but man, what a chance! What an opportunity for Indiana. I like. We don't pretend to be completely unbiased here. We declare our fandom, and teams that we kind of like, just sort of getting behind. Like, who doesn't like this Indiana team? Who, again, for the most part, has just been murdering teams. Like, it's one thing to win games; it's another thing to just completely stomp teams out, like they've been doing by and large for the most part of the season. Again, there's been a couple of close ones, but um, man, what I'd give to see Indiana beat Ohio State. I just think it would be just so awesome. I'm not picking it. I I can't get past like Ohio State's just the depth of weapons at receiver, but like all you got to do is play. I think Indiana. If you're Indiana, you're playing ball control here. You're trying to run the ball. You're trying to play pass off play action on third and short and third and medium, and shorten the game and give yourself a chance at the end to win. Their defense plays as a pretty good unit. I, I don't know how I feel about the back end of its defense just against anyone, especially against Ohio State's formidable group of receivers. So I'm concerned about that. I think you have to get some pressure if you're Indiana. And really, frankly, I don't know a single name on that Indiana defensive line. So, but I know that Ohio State's offensive line has been a little shaky on that with against a couple of other opponents. So this may be your opportunity to try and force some errant throws that otherwise, if they're accurate, are probably touchdowns if you're letting people loose in your secondary, which I'm assuming that will happen at least a few times. I don't know. I'm just like I'm all in on Indiana. I would love to see this happen. I can't pick it. Like I can't pick it, but like I'm super excited to watch this game.
Ohio State does not have that killer instinct that I was talking about at some point in time, where Penn State doesn't. They don't put teams away that they should put away. They don't beat teams super, super soundly. You beat Northwestern 31-7 after you kind of like dinked around for the first little bit. You beat Purdue 45-0. Won't go there. But like then you go back to Nebraska 21-17, Penn State 2013. You lost to Oregon. They don't feel like they have this cutthroat killer instinct into them. And for that reason, I think Indiana's going to hang around in this game, and if they hang around and they start to believe in themselves, and they start to believe that they belong there, that might be a problem for Ohio State. I expect that this will be the game I tune into. I always have one that I'm more focused on others. This is going to be the one because I expect it to be much closer than the Florida game, and I'm excited to see how it goes. I will come out and tell you I'm going to pick Indiana to cover in this game.
Oh,
Now,
all
whether they
right.
win or not, but I think Indiana hangs with this team.
No, good to know. All right. Yeah, keeping it just keep me entertained for all four quarters, Indiana. But again, praying that you can pull this one out. And also that just like for those people who are like embrace Schadenfreude, that feeling of happiness at other people's misery. Um, if that happens, like just go and search Ryan Day's mentions on Twitter, and I think you're gonna have an awesome day. Like, but 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 again, they got work to do first. Yeah, that noon slate, like I think that there's a couple of other games that could be pretty interesting. SMU had a pretty shaky performance against Boston College last week. West Virginia, excuse me, just Virginia needs either this one or Virginia Tech to go bowling. I think they've kind of had a pretty surprising season where they've just had, you know, I wouldn't have guessed they would have even won 5 games at this point. But here they are at 5-5 with 2 cracks at a bowl game, hosting SMU this week, and then on the road for the battle for the Commonwealth Cup at Lane Stadium next week in Blacksburg. But I don't know, that one could get interesting again. Like Virginia coming off of a couple of disappointing offensive performances in a row, so we'll see if they can get off the mat. But just figured I'd at least mention that game. SMU, I think they felt the pressure this last week, like where it's like it's coming down to the wire, and they're like, "Oh, don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up," and they pulled out that game against Boston College. I wonder if that continues to mount for them, or if that's kind of like, "Oh, okay, all right, we let the air out of the room, and now we can just relax and go back to playing football."
I think that pressure always stays there until you
It
make
just
it.
builds.
So, yeah, we'll see how it happens. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that one as well.
Nice. Um, I've got. Let's see. Oh, maybe I'll hand the baton to you. What's another game that you're looking at and
Yeah,
kind of keeping in mind?
I've got to move down to that 3:30 Eastern, 1:30 our time slate. Um, I've got two or three that I'm interested in that game, in that little section. Penn State, can they continue putting themselves in a position to be successful? You have the loss against Ohio State. Um, if Ohio State or Indiana, if whoever wins that game slips up, maybe you have a chance to get into the championship. But either way, if you don't, as long as you keep winning, you're probably in the playoffs. So Minnesota snuck up on some teams, and we'll see how that goes. But Penn State looked good last week. Like I was mocking Penn State for not having that killer instinct a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, they smoked Purdue 49-10. Now this Purdue team isn't that great, but still, you put a hurting on them a little bit more than I probably expect Penn State to do. Penn State doesn't normally put up 40 burgers, let alone almost 50. So can they keep themselves rolling? Can they keep themselves in a position to be successful and really put a good licking on Minnesota? Um, moving down a little bit further on that I'm sorry on my screen, Kentucky, Texas. Texas, I feel like needs to not stumble. This Kentucky team, you never know what you're going to get with this Kentucky team, so that'll be just a fun game to watch. I have worries that this could be looking like the Arkansas game, and then this Kentucky team would be like looks like it's or sorry, this could look like the Arkansas game. So this Texas team looks like they're kind of stuck in the mud a little bit. And I don't want that Texas team to be stuck in the mud as they start to get towards the end. I want to see that team really hit their their full potential. So that one, and then you got to go Colorado, Kansas. This Colorado team is not getting enough respect. They're not getting enough uh, recognition, and the line is only 3 for Colorado against Kansas. Look for Dion to put a hurting on Kansas as well.
Man, you, I don't know what to make of this game. Again, like Colorado's been super impressive as we come down the stretch. No arguments there, but so is Kansas, and they've been giant slayers 2 weeks in a row. The question is like, can you get up for another big game, or do you at some point just kind of get exhausted?
Yeah, and
Um,
I'll be honest. I felt BYU more lost this last game than Kansas won it. They didn't feel like they were giant slayers to me. So
Completely agree. Like you're not wrong. I'm just saying they were close enough in that game that the mistakes that BYU made counted. That they mattered, right?
and they won't be close enough against Colorado that they matter.
Fair. That's a fair argument. Let's shift gears to the other one that's got major implications in the Big 12. We talked about it a little bit last week or last episode. BYU on the road in Tempe, taking on the Sun Devils. BYU 9-1, 6-1 in the Big 12. Arizona State 8-2, 5-2 in the Big 12. Arizona currently favored by about 3.5. Man, I have no idea how this game plays out. I
Oh, if
just,
I'm a BYU fan, I am nervous as heck.
oh
Like
yeah, oh of course,
I
yeah,
I do not. I think that line of 3.5 ASU being 3.5 tells you exactly what you should feel. You should not expect to win this game. You've not been playing well. You've been gravitating back towards the median or to the middle of the pack, and your play has shown that way. And you need to have a showing against Arizona State. Arizona State's looked impressive the last few weeks. You need to have a showing, and you need to win if you have any chance of keeping your playoff hope alive. Um, but they've had the playoff hopes sitting on kind of a string for the last 2 weeks, and they haven't looked like they're playing that urgent. So I fear for BYU blowing it right now.
Yeah, there's a couple of sort of thoughts that are in my head that are similar to that. Right, we've seen a couple of teams after they lose the zero in the loss column that it kind of compounds on them. Right, like it's
Pitt,
like yeah, Pitt being one, Navy being another. Like there's others that once that aura of invincibility is gone, like what's there to replace it? So I'm interested to see that. The interesting thing that I kind of look at this game and kind of look at the differences between these two teams is like I mean Sam Levitt isn't necessarily asked to do a whole lot in the offense in terms of like he's like let's see in the last let's see yeah in the last 4 games obviously he had a pretty good game against KSU where 34 attempts 275 yards 3 touchdowns no interceptions like excellent job but like he's not usually asked to like carry the team. And so I'm interested to see if BYU can force the issue. They actually played the run against Kansas way better than I thought they would for the most part, for the majority of that game against Kansas. So it's like, can you? I don't think you're going to be able to take, you know, to take Did Scadaboo play in that? Yeah, did he
he
play
did
in
play
this
last
game
week.
versus
Yeah,
KS? Okay, yeah, 25 carries, 73 yards. There it is. So like, can you do that same thing where you force, Sam Levitt to be the one that beats you, right? Like force him to play you through the air. And I kind of like your chances if you're able to do that. Like Levitt's again, he's not a statue. He's a pretty mobile guy. So like that's the part that I think is is the thing that BYU will need to account for that they maybe haven't done as great of a job of that throughout the year. But this one I don't think will sneak up on you like Brandon Rose did or like um, uh, Garrett Rangel. I can't remember his first name. Rangel from
yeah.
Oklahoma State. Like you've got enough film from Sam Levitt showing that he's an athlete that you should kind of be prepared for that. I don't know. It's just a fun game. Like I love that this game is being played with like, this at this stage in the season with some stakes to it.
Yeah,
I was texting with a buddy who's going to be at the game. He's like, I bought tickets to this game thinking, maybe we're fighting to get to a bowl. He's an ASU fan, and he's like, and now it's like, oh my gosh, like this is the game. Like it feels like so much is on the line for both teams. Um, so it'll
you're,
be a juiced environment.
you're
Uh,
talking defensive side of the ball for BYU and offensive side for ASU. I'm more interested in the other side because I think ASU is going to score quite a bit. Can BYU hang with them? And that's what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. Like again, the Kansas State game I think is an interesting one because Kansas State really wants to run the football and BYU runs the football but in different ways. I don't know. I love the deep stable of BYU's backfield. Like they have like 3 or 4 running backs that you feel pretty good about all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. Like I'm interested to see. I think early on in that game you'll get a pretty good sense of can they run out of more traditional sets, and if they can't, yeah, it might be a bit of a challenge against Arizona State because
Yeah,
they're
I feel like for BYU, the key to them is opening up the pass and clicking in the pass. I think the pass opens up their running game. I think they have a pretty good run game, but if they can get their passing game clicking, then that makes them so much more dynamic. It's when their passing game isn't clicking and Retzloff is a little inaccurate, then teams don't have to worry about it as much, and they can just sit down on the run. And so I think the key to that game is can BYU open up the passing game?
yeah. We'll have to see. I'm really interested to see how this game plays out because I mean you say that you think that Arizona's going to score points like how many?
They're going to get 24.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of in my ballpark. It's just like in kind of the ballpark that I had in my head. I just the way you said that, it made it sound like how many points are you expecting? Are you expecting them to get to like north of 30, mid 30s, or I mean, I think that they can probably keep up with that. But again, of late, Arizona State's the defense lately has been pretty sharp. Um, let's see,
BYU
yeah,
hasn't
holding
scored more
Kansas
than
State to
24
14.
points in a month. So
All right,
that's my
that's
biggest
true.
worry.
Yeah, it's fair point, fair game. I yeah, that one's just a fascinating one to watch as we come down the stretch because again, the winner. My understanding is the winner of that game controls their own destiny as far as getting into the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
And again, with a potential rematch with the two of them, or most likely seeing Colorado. Again, it depends on how everything shakes out. But right now, my assumption is that Colorado's in that Big 12 championship game because I think they close with. I can't remember who they close with now.
You're assuming they
UCF
beat
and
Kansas,
sorry.
right? You're assuming that they beat Kansas this weekend.
I mean, yeah, with that, I mean, again, that one in that same time slot, so those will both be on the split screen for me. Alrighty. Let's see. Should we move past that? Sorry, to the other parts of the slate. I accidentally navigated away from my
Oh,
little.
Colorado happens to end the season with the powerhouse of Oklahoma State. Just like that.
Oh, all right. Is it on the road? Does Gundy have one more middle
I don't
finger
think
he
it is
can
on the
he
road.
can raise to the sky of the
Yeah,
Big 12? I feel like they're always good in that spoiler role. Oh,
no, it's
see
at
if we can get
home.
the boys up. Okay. Yeah, no. Yeah, probably not. um, let's see. What else do we need to talk through? Oh, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Who goes bowling?
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Wisconsin just fired Phil Longo, so what do they do? What do they look like? Nebraska's really struggled to score points lately. So who can just kind of push themselves over the edge? The over under is 42.5 on this, and I'm like looking at, I think it's 42.5, and I'm looking back on the last scores. Wisconsin over the last, let's go back to October 19th, 23 points, 13 points, 10 points, 13 points. Go to Nebraska since we'll go to Nebraska since the 5th, at least I can see here. 20 points, 20 points, 17, 7, 14. So neither team scored over 20 in a long time. Um, do they get to that? Do you run it? Are your offenses running into any inept defenses as well? And I don't know. That line was interesting to me. I was tempted to pick it, but I'm really rooting for Nebraska on this one. I want to see Dylan Rayola do well, and I want to see Nebraska continue to.
In a bowl? Like I saw this stat. Who was it? Chris Vanini. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's a writer for the Athletic. He said in their last 9 games to clinch a bowl, Nebraska is 0-9. Like that's brutal. So I'm hoping they get over the hump too. Both of them coming off of pretty deflating losses, where Nebraska had chances to beat USC on the road, Wisconsin had a chance to beat Oregon at home. Yeah, it's who can get up off the mat. That one's going to be an interesting one. Um, what else you got?
Army Notre Dame. I'm
Okay,
really hoping
that was my next one. Yeah.
close. I don't believe that they can. I feel like this will be very similar to the Navy game, although I do think this Army team is better than the Navy team, to be frank. But can they keep it close? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But would love to see them find a way. just hey, win. It doesn't matter. Win as ugly as you have to. Find a way to win this one, Army. Do it. I dare you. Um, I don't think they do. I don't think they keep it close. I think that in the middle of the third quarter, the broadcast group is talking about playoff stuff and anything but the game.
Yeah.
Uh, Especially with you know Army and Navy. Yeah, we kind of have implemented some new things along with the triple option. They've kind of innovated a bit um, as the game has kind of changed, but for the kind of more core principles of it, Notre Dame's already gotten a good view of what it looks like against Navy, and I just think that it's going to be hard to surprise them. They're playing awesome defensively, and I think they'll be able to just kind of overwhelm Army on the offensive side of the ball, running the football, both with Riley Leonard and with your backs, throwing off of play action. I just feel like this game plays into Notre Dame's hands, so not feeling crazy confident in Army's ability to keep that one close. Let's see. I want to talk Texas A&M and Auburn. This is a 2.5 point spread. I was just like how and that's where it's like I know that someone knows something that I don't, right? Like
Well,
just
it's A&M's inconsistency to be able to pick a quarterback that does something successful, and you got to switch back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to find them in that same situation. So
yeah, I just like I mean, what makes you think that Auburn can score any points against this team? That's why I just keep kind of like coming back to is like I mean, you're gonna go all out.
yeah,
It's senior day, right? It's your last home game of the season, so the environment will be as challenging as it is. It's again a night game, which is exciting for the fans. They can kind of again, I think this is one of those teams that's really eager to turn the page, and you know, I think we used to joke about like Hugh Freeze and Mario Cristobal were the guys that would sim through the season if they were playing like the college football video game just so they could get back to the recruiting. Um, so I think that they're eager to do that. I'm sure he's eager to do that. But this is kind of your last chance to leave with a good taste in your mouth. I think I expect. I know it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. I expect Alabama to beat Auburn by about 30 points next week. Um, I don't see any path to victory for Auburn. I'd love to be wrong. Like, hey, like I'm all for the chaos. Let's do it. But I think that's kind of where I'm kind of landing on. That's why this thing is so close. A&M is a flawed team for sure, but Auburn just can't score. Like I just can't get past that part. Like Auburn can't score, so they're going to have an awesome defensive effort to keep A&M scoring low. And again, the total's at 47.5, but I just am fascinated to see that game play out. I think within the first 10 minutes or so, we'll probably have a pretty good answer as to like who's winning that game, because if A&M scores more than 10 points, I think they might be just on their way. That might just be the end of it. But I don't know. I don't know if you had thoughts on that game, or we can go shift gears to another. But that one to me just like raised my eyebrows. Like, oh, really? We
that
think
two and a
that?
half point line was the same thing for me. I was like, oh, that's surprising, and I'm trying to get there. Why that would be, and yeah, I mean, you got an SEC defense. You have the talent in Auburn. You haven't been able to get the Hugh Freeze wins that you kind of get occasionally over good teams. Maybe
Yeah,
this is the one.
maybe this is the one been saving it, because he always seems to overperform it in at least one game. Again, last year they played. Um, they played Georgia super close. They played. I can't even remember who else the other one was, but um, yeah, I'm blanking on it. It
But
wasn't.
do you think
Oh,
Hugh Freeze
it was
doesn't get
Bama.
fired at the end of
Yeah.
this year? Do they? Does he?
No, I don't
Yeah, I
think
don't think so.
so.
Like I
I
think
think they
maybe
give him one more year.
at least.
Unless, like, if you lose this one in embarrassing fashion and you lose the next one in embarrassing fashion, if you get blown out in these next two games, I think it's possible. I
Yeah.
think what's saving him is that he's recruiting really, really well, but we'll see if that holds up. Again, I think the end of this recruiting cycle is going to be just wild. So
Yeah, I think
keep
they're going to
keep
get hurt by a few losses at the end of this.
that's the part where it's like, all right, if that happens, do you try and I don't know. I just don't think it's prudent. Maybe you just wait till next year. I'm assuming he's around next year.
Yeah. Um, Speaking around coaches that might be around next year, Brent Venables, Oklahoma. I don't. There's no way he gets fired, in my opinion. He's got a $45 million buyout, but I do want to see. I am rooting for them to do well against Alabama. It's going to be an interesting time or interesting game. We don't get to see Oklahoma versus Bama ever, and so we get to see this opportunity to see these two teams play, these brands play. I think we all expect Bama to win this one, but I would love to see Oklahoma make it close. So
Yeah, and again, I think that we've talked about this with a couple of other teams, but like to me, the key is like Oklahoma's defensive front has to play the game of their lives, and they're good. That's a good group. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but if they keep it closer, if they are somehow able to pull the upset, I think that's the story of the game is that Jalen Milroe wasn't able to really kind of escape the pressure that they're able to have a controlled pass rush, but also win some of those one-on-one blocks or win some of those one-on-one opportunities against the Alabama offensive line. And yeah, I think that's going to be the key. Brent Venables, I think, is a really good defensive mind, so I'm sure he'll have some things prepared. I love the way he schemes up blitzes on third and long scenarios, or on those high leverage scenarios where it's down and distance plays into your hands as a defensive play caller. So I am interested to see how that plays out. I think that they can do that for 2.5 quarters. I also am curious to see what they can do offensively.
that's the
Um,
biggest issue.
yeah, that's the biggest issue, but it's also I think the biggest opportunity. Alabama's played like their defensive front played the best game that they had against LSU
Yep.
2 weeks ago. And so if you're going to get like a similar effort, I have a hard time putting much stock into what they just did against Mercer, right? That's hard for me to really quantify or really like adjust on that. So if they're going to do that, you're in trouble. Like if you're Oklahoma, right? Like there's kind of no getting around that. But I also think that there's plenty of opportunities against Alabama secondary that you can maybe take advantage of. If I don't know, I have no idea where the health of Oklahoma's receivers is. I admittedly have not been paying attention. Um, they're they're a 5-5 team, so I don't feel that bad about not knowing everything that's going on with them. But I just think that there's chances to make this thing interesting, but your defense is going to have to have a Herculean effort to keep this game close. To maybe Jalen Milroe at times has turned the ball over. It's not been super frequent this year, but in years past, he's thrown the ball to the wrong team. So you're going to
Yeah.
have some big plays on offense and probably on special teams to try and win at the margins and be close at the end and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will. Moving on to another game, Vanderbilt LSU. It feels like two teams that were kind of going in the right direction have kind of come back on the earth a little bit. If Vanderbilt gets LSU, good heavens, I am so excited to see what happens uh, on Twitter and
Yeah,
in the press conference.
yeah,
I don't know if it's going to happen, but if they do, like they seem to scheme up things the right way. They did have that loss to South Carolina in convincing fashion, but if they can come back from the bye week and put a hurting on LSU or beat LSU down in Baton Rouge, good heavens, will the fans lose it? It
yeah.
will be so much fun.
That could be. I mean, I don't think Brian Kelly gets fired this year,
No,
but I
but
mean, you
but
lose
give
to
it like three,
Vandy.
four games and they don't do well next year, and if they're 2-2 next year already, dude, yeah, that might happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I just yeah, we'll see. I am excited to see that one play out. LSU is one of those teams that's just fascinating. Like, and maybe it's I should take a look in the mirror because Florida State's in a much worse predicament. But like LSU, to me, what's unique about them is that they're sort of the premier program in a state that develops lots of premier talent, and you kind of get your pick of those players.
Except for
And
not lately, you know.
yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't feel great about where that program is. Like the trend of it. If I own stock in LSU, I'd be selling it all. Um, and yeah, Vanderbilt could maybe put another or at least chop another like leg of the chair that Brian Kelly's sitting on. Just remove
Yeah,
another one of them
you
and
open
make
up
that
next
pretty
year against
unstable.
Clemson too. Now, if
Clemson
Clemson
next
it
year.
continues their downward trend, who knows? But
Klubnik will be back. Peter Woods will be back. Sammy Brown. Clemson might be pretty good next year. And
I
we all
mean, it
know
is the first game of the
Brian.
year,
Is it a
which they
neutral
lose.
site game? Is it a neutral site game?
It's at Clemson.
Oh, it's actually even worse.
Yeah.
Um, I was just going
So
to say
Clemson
Brian
lost to
Kelly.
Duke last year. They lost to Georgia this
Lost to
year. They
Georgia
took
this
at least these
year.
opening ones.
Fair. I'm just saying, like Brian Kelly hasn't fared well in these neutral site games. He's 0-3 for the last three. I don't know how going further back what it is, but yeah, opening he's opened all three seasons with a loss.
Yeah, Florida State twice and then
Oof,
ASU once.
that's brutal. How'd you
Yeah,
like that? Oh, that'd be tough.
you're already out of or SEC contention to some degree, or
Yeah.
whatever. So I
Okay.
do. I'm sad that we don't have more late night games that are like more important. I miss this not having this Pac-12 sometimes because you could get those games that really might sway things, might go crazy. We've had it a little bit with BYU this last 2 weeks, thankfully, but we don't get it this week. So
You get USC UCLA at what 8:30? That's a late game. What?
9 wins combined. Who cares?
I mean that's the whole point is who goes to a bowl. Like this, that's it is on the line. UCLA, there is a tremendous opportunity in front of UCLA. Like you have a brand new coach whose name right now is escaping me.
Foster, Arian
Gosh,
Foster.
Foster. Yeah, okay, thank you. What's his first name?
Is it Arian? No.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Um, yeah, so he's got an awesome opportunity. Like 4-6 is not a good year, but they have been playing better of late. And if you can put USC out of a bowl. I guess they still have the Notre Dame game, but like I don't expect like USC to beat Notre Dame. At least not at this
Deshaun Foster.
moment.
I don't know why I said
Deshaun
Arian.
Foster.
Deshaun Foster.
Arian Foster was the old Tennessee running back. That's why I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, that's a
wrong.
name.
That's why I
That
went around it.
Deshaun. Thank you for fixing that. Deshaun Foster,
I was the one that
Arian.
was wrong, so you're don't
Well, you
worry.
said it, and I was like, yeah, that like the name rang a bell. I just didn't realize why it rang a bell. It's like, no, he
They're
played
both
for the
running
Tech.
backs. I was
He
trying to
played
figure
for
out
the
which one
Texans
was right.
forever. Yeah, for forever. But like Deshaun Foster, like you're 4-6. Let's see, who do you play in your last game there? And you play versus Fresno State. Like a bowl game is still like in reach. You got to have this one, and it's just man, like if you get Lincoln Riley to go from playing in the Pac-12 championship game his first year, and they probably should have won it, to what the next year they don't even make the championship game if memory serves. Is that right? Like I'm gonna
Yeah, I don't think they
forget this.
do.
Yeah, they went 7-5 last year. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, 7-5 with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback to now not making a bowl. Like his win totals are like that's like down and to the right, which is where no business wants to go.
Well, and
Um,
this is their chance, right? Because they play Notre Dame next.
exactly. So I don't know. This one's going to be a big one. I'm tuning into that game. I'm watching that one. I love the at least if nothing else, like it's a beautiful like combination of uniform colors where they both wear. Obviously USC's in what the cardinal I think is what they call their red, and then the powder blue from UCLA. It makes for a good visual spectacle. But I mean UCLA's playing pretty good ball of late. Again, they gave up. They ended up kind of breaking in the second half against Washington, but I'm giving them a little bit of a pass on that. But I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens here. I kind of lean UCLA.
I just don't get the quarterback change. With 2 games left, 3 games left. It's very surprising to me. I didn't feel like Moss had done that terrible. I mean, you're 2 for 1. Great.
Yeah, I would have changed something else. Like I don't think he was the problem. Like I feel like at times it's the play calling. If anything, was like just like maybe we should try and be a little bit more balanced and involve Woody Marks in our game plan a little bit more because he's a pretty good running back. And yeah, anyway, I've got opinions on that, but that's Lincoln Riley's obviously not going to fire himself. So um,
Nor is Coach Norvell.
yeah, they're not, but they may give up play calling duties at some point, but we'll have to see. I don't know. So that one's got my attention, but I do hear you loud and clear. On the whole, I used to love staying up for the late Pac-12 game, and I feel like this season's been hit and miss with that time slot. I mean, there's been a
I feel
few
like
few
BYU
really
is the
good
only
ones,
team
but
that's carried that for me in 2 weeks.
I
It's
mean,
been the last
early in the season, Colorado had a couple of games on it that were pretty close. Didn't wasn't the Baylor game that they complete the Hail Mary? Wasn't that in the late time slot?
I don't feel like it was, to be honest.
Maybe it wasn't. Anyway, I just like I hear you. I do kind of mourn the loss of it, where it's like those games maybe had a little bit more stakes because like I think that was the late game where like you had like Jaden Daniels as a true freshman beating Oregon, who was led by Justin Herbert at the time, to ruin their playoff dreams in what like 20 I can't remember what year that would have been, 2018 or something like that. Like, but you had games like that where it's like, oh man, like the nation maybe is asleep for this, but I'm not, and it's amazing. And so yeah, I would love to see more of that. But nonetheless, I think there's like as we're going through this, like the more excited I am about this week and saying like, you know what, there's one or two games in every time slot that have meaningful stakes that are at least on paper expected to be a reasonably close game that will probably be competitive. Um, and yeah, we'll kind of craft the narrative both for this season and kind of going forward for a few of these different teams. So I'm pumped with that. Unless you have anything else, we'll go to picks. Should we
the
pick it up?
Colorado Baylor game was at 6 p.m. kickoff, so it was a late game. So
6 p.m. Mountain Time or 6 p.m.
I don't know off the top of my head there, but it was late enough.
Okay, later, right?
Yeah.
Let me share the spreadsheet. Okay. So yeah, we'll recap the week that was in picks. Again, I was
Terrible.
a
Well, that's
little
what it was. It was
I was
terrible.
a little more gun shy. UGA versus Tennessee under 48.5. Thank you for that extra half point. Houston plus 1.5 at Arizona. That just never had a chance. Like within 10 minutes or so of that game, it's like, okay, Arizona's up by a couple of scores. Yeah, I still felt right. Like I still kind of like yeah, it was a special night in Tucson. That was good for them. Arizona deserved to have a win like that, so good for them. I'm a little surprised at that one. Utah, again, I kind of thought they'd have a chance to keep it close. Um, After the punt return touchdown for Colorado, I was like, okay, they're up 2 scores, and I wonder if the defense is really able to maintain the same intensity. And the answer is no. Um, but the Texas Arkansas under, that was felt good on that one. They ended up being what 27.5 points beneath this total. I think it was 20 to 10, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that was a pretty comfortable one. Washington again was a fairly comfortable one. It was a little close midway through the third quarter, but by the end of the game, Washington wore down the Bruins. Um, yeah, so that was my slate 3-2. So on this season against the spread, I am 44-36. Not bad. Corey again has had a strong year, but two back to back weeks of some challenges. You want to recap it?
Yeah, we can go to the Texas Arkansas game. Texas just kept falling apart towards the end. They couldn't finish things. Honestly, it was right there for the taking, and they could not put a bow on it. So whatever. Ohio State Northwestern. They didn't play the first quarter and a half, and then decided to play the game, and all of a sudden rolled up 41.
Yeah.
So kind of got burned on that one. Boise State was close with San Jose State about around halftime, and then decided to put their foot in the ground. Oregon, we all know what happened there. They couldn't do anything in that game. Couldn't even almost score 14.5 points, let alone win by 14.5.
Yeah, exactly.
Clemson Pitt, that was right for the taking too. They just couldn't put Pitt away for the line. They ended up getting a game sealing interception, win by 4. Notre Dame UVA, Virginia scores with 18 seconds left
That was brutal.
to shoot
Sorry,
me.
man.
Tennessee Georgia scores with 2 minutes left to shoot me. I was like, okay, I've got some good chance. Like honestly, a lot of these were right there and just went the wrong way. Colorado, Utah wasn't close, and Kansas. I told you Kansas was going to beat them. I didn't
Yeah.
even claim that one was happiness insurance. I just said they're going to beat them next year that week. So.
Yeah, no, saw that one coming. Nicely
Well,
done. Well,
the
I was
winner
three
gets
and
to
two
pick.
on the
Yeah.
week, so I'm leading out on these. I got a handful of picks that I feel pretty good about. All right, Notre Dame versus Army. I am taking Notre Dame to cover. It's what minus
14.
what is minus
What I thought.
14? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'll take that. I'll take those points. I know that earlier it was even higher. It's been bet down. I'm a little surprised to see that. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm taking Notre Dame minus 14 versus Army. Washington State minus 12.5 versus Oregon State. Taking that one. Oregon State's not any good. Washington State lost to New Mexico this last week in just absolutely excruciating fashion. I'm hoping that they get a little palate cleanser here. They are on the road again, and they have not played great on the road, but Oregon State's a really bad football team. Washington State's competent. I expect them to cover the 12.5. So give me Washington State minus 12.5. Okay. Next one. Like I said, I expect Oklahoma to maybe keep it close versus Bama for a stretch of this game. I just think over the course of 4 quarters, they just won't be able to hold them to this. So I'm taking Bama minus 14. Again, apologies to our Sooner fans out there. I'm just calling the ones that I think have the most likelihood to hit. Texas A&M Auburn. We talked about this one, just how baffled we were by this spread. The one part I'm not surprised by is, or the one thing that doesn't surprise me is I don't think Auburn's going to score, but I'm not sure Texas A&M can score a ton either. So I'm going to take the under in that game. So under 47.5. Is that what you're seeing, Corey?
I can check real quick. 47.5. Yep.
Okay. All right. Next one. Miami plays Wake Forest. And I mean, I don't know. It just feels like Miami, that's a lot of points to lay with them. So I'm going to go with what I feel is perhaps more likely. I think that they get over 64.5 points. I think Miami is going to try and make a push for Cam Ward to win the Heisman. So he'll probably stay out a little longer than he needs to. And I could also see the Miami defense giving up a couple scores. Wake Forest can score points. They have an okay offense. So I'm going to take the over 64.5 in Miami and Wake. What do I have next? Oh, here, 2-for-1 special here in Nebraska versus Wisconsin. I expect Nebraska to get up off the mat better than Wisconsin does. So give me Nebraska minus 2.5 to win the game and to cover that spread.
Let me guess.
Under. Yep, well done. I also like the under in that one, so we'll take Nebraska, spell it right, and Wisconsin under 42.5.
Yep, that's what I saw.
Okay. That's what I had written down. Okay, I have one more that I'm now like, do I dare? I'm gonna go for it. Okay, I actually felt pretty encouraged by what Boston College did against SMU last week. So this week they are against UNC. I believe they're on the road, but I'm not positive on that. But they are 2.5-point underdogs versus UNC. You're seeing 3. I will take the 3.
Yeah.
Versus North Carolina. So it's just a lot of points. I know Omarion Hampton's a really good back, but I think BC can slow him down enough to keep it within the 3. Also, if they're slowing him down, not giving up explosive runs, clock runs, shortens the game, maybe gives them a chance to keep it close. So give me BC plus 3 versus North Carolina. That's my full card here.
You and me looked at a lot of the same games. I'm very interested to hear it's very interesting to hear your thoughts. I too have Notre Dame versus Army. Army hasn't scored more than 20 in the last 2 games, and they haven't played nearly as good an opponent. So give me that one. I looked at that Bama game. What if OU's defense holds them into it? I can't.
I see. I would love to be wrong on that one. Yeah. That one's one where it's like, come on, Oklahoma, prove me wrong on that one.
I looked at the A&M line as well against Auburn. Give me A&M minus 2.5. I think your 47 is probably a good call too, but I think A&M covers this. Give me Indiana to cover the 13 at Ohio State.
Ooh, that's right. You said that, I think, already,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I'm seeing 13.5 in other places, but give me Indiana to cover this. I think they make this a close game. And
Sorry, plus 13.5?
plus 13. I've seen
Plus
13.5
13.
elsewhere, but the line, I go by DraftKings, so give me 13. I'd love the half point on that, but whatever. Give me Colorado minus 3 at Kansas. This Colorado team is humming. There's no reason to think that they won't continue beating teams. Northwestern at Michigan. This Michigan team doesn't score, but Northwestern doesn't either. Give me Michigan minus 12. Northwestern at Michigan. I looked at the SMU game too and thought, I'm a little interested to see how this goes. They didn't play well and they still won by 10. Yeah, give me them to cover the 9.5 against Virginia. So SMU at Virginia minus 9.5. I flirted with some other ones. Tennessee minus 42. Wisconsin the under 42.5. I actually have that one written down and scribbled out. And then Boise State. But give me Iowa minus 6.5 at Maryland. I think they can fix themselves a little bit. So that's one. That's probably the one I probably shouldn't be putting on there. But
Which one? The Iowa?
yeah,
I thought about that too. I feel like Maryland's kind of crumbling. So I that was one I was tempted by as well, but maybe not this go around.
so
Probably come to regret it. So you have in total, you have 7.
Yep.
I have 8. I feel like I should put one more on the board or pull one off so I can have a winning or a losing week, but I'll leave it be. All right. Any final thoughts or comments before we go into week
Please let Florida
13?
State win this game like somewhat convincingly.
Yes.
Florida State is 33.5 point favorites. They've not scored over 22 points.
I was gonna say I still don't trust them. I don't care. Like you can roll out a high school team and be like, all right, are they actually gonna break 30 points? I'm not sure. Like they'll probably
start for them.
Yeah, that's true. I bet you he does.
I bet you he doesn't, to be honest.
Are you thinking they're going to try and keep both of them on the roster for next year?
Might. The one thing about that's really
I just
weird
don't
about
believe
them
that they will. I don't
really
know. Oh, they are?
Cromenhawk and Brock are really good friends. They are always posting about each other.
All right, we'll see if they can keep them both. I almost feel like you got to pick one and then bring someone else in to compete with whoever you choose.
Yeah,
and I say choose as if they can have a choice. Like, it really will be like, who can you convince to stay? Right? Like, I expect there to be some significant turnover on the roster. I
just don't imagine many.
I think it's going to get gutted.
Like, they haven't proven themselves, either one of them. So
yeah, maybe they're not. Maybe the prospects aren't better elsewhere. I'm just saying, like, I think if I was either one of them, I would at least consider anything that came my way.
Yeah.
You're not shutting down that conversation immediately. You're like, all right, talk to me. What's the offer look like? Anyway, all right. Well, that'll wrap it up. We ended up taking almost 53 minutes on this one. So well done. I feel like that was one of our more thorough and comprehensive previews. Thanks for listening, everyone. Appreciate it. Follow along on our socials. Hit us up. Interact with us. Appreciate the listening and the support, and we will see you after week 13. We'll see who is unlucky week number 13. I don't know.
Such a good rap.
Sounded better in my mind, but that's okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see ya.